I think January is the perfect month to do a video about the reality of being a freelancer, because tomorrow is January 31st, and that is my first paid job this month. At least I think it is. I'll have to double check that. Technically, tomorrow is my first paid job of the year. So it's been a whole month, no paid jobs. That's reality number one. January sucks. Everyone's on holiday in January because nothing's really happening. Apart from there's a lot of planning and a lot of this is gonna, February's gonna be busy, but nothing really happens in January. You need, and it's a sucker because nothing's happening at Christmas because everyone's on holiday. So my first few years, January, Christmas time was horrible because there wasn't very much money. And because everyone's so happy in Christmas times, and you're seeing everyone on their holidays and stuff, and you're like, oh God, where is all this money? And yeah, it's very stressful. So let's dive into the video, shall we? So because you have these lulls where you're not always working, it's not a normal 9 to 5, you're not guaranteed work all the time, you need to be able to fill in all of this space with filler work and networking. So yeah, tomorrow's my first, but I was at an event last week where I was doing a photo pop-up thing. We had loads of people coming in. I was taking pictures of them. They're all creatives who work in the same space as me. That was a good networking event. I just made a video as well about, I spent a week in Amsterdam doing a test shoot. That was good for coming back feeling very inspired, good portfolio shoot and a good time and a good waste of a January week that would have just been otherwise spent at home in the studio. Not feeling very good about myself. Because after about 5 or 6 years now of spending January sitting around doing nothing and feeling very stressed, I can tell you it's way better to be out there doing something. And then also when I say it's good to be doing something, I'm not always just talking about the work stuff. I know the first probably 3 or 4 years out of school just working, I wasn't the best at having a social life. And that is partly because I was living in London and everything costs money, and also because I just couldn't prioritize that. There's a lot of bullshit online, which there is truth to it. There's those quotes that are
there's no perfect way to live your 20s. You either live them up and become an underskilled 30-year-old, or you work them up and become an underlived 30-year-old. You just have to figure out which you'd rather be, accept the trade-offs, and know that there are no do-overs.
But there's all this hustle porn and red pill bullshit out there that can get in your mind a bit too much sometimes. And potentially it got into my mind a little bit too much at the start because, there was this part of me that's just oh, I'm not out drinking. I'm I'm working. I'm doing my thing. And I was still stressed because I'm still, I'm working. I'm doing everything I can. I'm still, not making enough money to be relaxed. I realize now that I make a bit more money. It wasn't the going out and drinking and socializing that was stressing me out. It was the going out and drinking and socializing and then looking at my bank account the next day and realizing I only have £2.50 in it because I spent 50 quid on a few rounds of drinks or food or whatever, which isn't that much money. But when you don't have any money, it's a lot of money. So now that I have more free time, more control over my life, more boundaries in place, I am trying to enjoy having a social life and working on socializing more. There's always a balancing act when you're freelancing of taking care of all the work that's coming in your client base, taking care of the client base you've already curated, and looking out to what you want and the new projects you want and where you want to change and go into a different area, find new clients, new work, new opportunities. There is always this balance, and at the beginning it can be really hard because you don't have the confidence in yourself to go and get more work. Any work that you're getting is just oh my God, thank you for this work, thank you for giving me money, thank you, oh my God, I could eat tonight. And there would be no point in my head in the first 3 years where if someone asked me to do something, I wouldn't be saying no, or can we do this next week? I remember very vividly the first time I said to someone, I can't do this right now. Because I actually couldn't do it right now. Because at the beginning it's you don't have that much work, you're on everyone else's time, you're not being paid that much, you're really being used and abused. I've had a few people comment on videos I've made in the past where I've been saying like, at the beginning of your career, you know, you just have to like get out there, do things for free, blah, 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 and you get a bit used and abused. And there was someone who commented like, you know, that's not right. That's, you know, that's not the way of things. It's like, yeah, no, I agree. You know, it shouldn't be that way. But these jobs, you know, you can't really just walk into like a high paying job when you're just starting, like without someone opening the door for you. You have to have a portfolio base. And my way in was I got used and abused for a bit at the beginning. Not by everyone, but by quite a lot of people. I got pretty used and abused. But yeah, I remember I was doing some edit for someone, and they were like, yeah, can we have all these changes done, blah, 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 need it tonight. No, they didn't say they need it tonight. They're like, can you do this tonight? And I was just like, no, I can't. Like Wednesday is the soonest I can do this. And that's the first time I told someone like, no, you can't have it when you want it. And they were like, oh yeah, that's fine. Wednesday's fine. And I was like, oh. So, because in my head, just like every time someone had come and said to me, can you do this now? I just thought that meant, I need you to do this now. In my head, like, can you do this now meant, I need you to do this now. And I would always do it now. And when I said no, when that like illusion shattered and I realized people asking, can you do this now, is them, it's their best case scenario. It's them being like, it's basically them saying, it would be great if you could do this now. But the more confidence you build and the busier you get, all this kind of stuff, blah, 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 you finally realize you can tell people no. It's like, you can prioritize other things. You can be like, no, I'm, you know, not even just at the start, the first like year after I realized that, I would always say, no, I've got work, blah, 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 blah. I would always have to be like, if I was saying no to someone, it had to be because I was working. I felt insecure saying like, no, sorry, I can't do this because I'm going to see my friend, or no, I'm going to do this thing, or it just all in my head had to be like, oh no, I can't prioritize you because I'm prioritizing someone else, I'm busy, working. But yeah, the feel when someone asks you, can you do this? They're not demanding that of you. They're asking you a question. And it took me a long time to understand that. And once I understood that and built up my confidence saying no, or not just saying no, but prioritizing myself and other people's work, that gave me a lot of breathing space and a bit more confidence. And then that started opening the door for me to be able to look at like going and getting more work and putting in a day of the week where I could sit down and, you know, find more work and find more areas of interest and do a bit of my own research and be inspired and bring new ideas into my work and then pitch those to clients I already had. But yeah, take away from that, when a client asks you, can you do this at this time? They are asking you, can you? They're not demanding that of you. And I know at the beginning, for me, I felt like, can you do this? Felt like someone saying, I need you to do this right now. So don't be afraid to communicate what you can and can't do, or what you don't want to do. Now this brings me on to the next bit, which is setting boundaries. This is something I didn't have for my first few years. I remember doing like edits for influencers from like at like 4 a.m. They were clearly like out on a bender doing other things at 4 a.m, like just, you know, finally getting on their phone on the Uber ride back, being like, can we change this, blah, 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 blah. I'd be like, oh, right, oh God, they're texting me. Oh, yes, I'll do that right now. You don't need to do that. You can say, yep, great, we'll do that another time. If they say, well, I need it now, she's like, well, it's 4 a.m. Should have done this earlier. It's on them, you know. Them not being able to do their time management properly is not on you. Also, same goes for yourself. If you're setting boundaries with people, being like, I can't do this, I'm busy, blah, 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 and you do have all your clients like on social media and stuff, maybe don't be, you know, posting you out doing ridiculous things when you know you've got work to do or you've set yourself a deadline. I see some people do that. Usually producers. I think this is a very well-known thing. We all know a producer who owes us money, who is posting pictures of them spraying bottles of champagne around on some island somewhere, and you're like, you're gonna pay me the fucking money you fucking owe me, you fucking... So yeah, don't be that guy. One thing I'm getting better at over the years is asking people for constructive criticism. Early on, some people would just give, you know, bad criticism because, you know, you're early on in your career, you aren't very good, but they're getting you for dirt cheap. And, sometimes people get this feeling of power over you when they're, paying you peanuts or not paying you at all, that they can just treat you like shit. And sometimes they'll just be very mean in their feedback because they don't respect you at all. Don't listen to that. Just forget about that. But when you move on and you start working with people on like a higher level, or there's a bit more respect there, and you ask for constructive criticism, it is a good thing. It can hurt a lot, and I fucking hate it. I hate asking for constructive criticism but the main reason is, if you're in this sort of industry, it's probably because it's something you love, or it's the thing you're good at, like taking pictures, making videos, artwork, all that stuff. It's your thing. It's what you're really good at. And when someone gives you criticism on it, it's like, this is the thing I am best at in the world, and I'm not doing a very good job. Like if I was working, I don't know, selling pens somewhere, and someone's like, you didn't sell them that many pens today, I'd be like, yeah, well, who cares? I'm not Mr. Pen, I don't really care. But when it comes to something that's a bit more personal, like it's your creativity, it's your artwork, and someone's giving you criticism on that, it can be very easy to take that very personally, because it's almost becomes your identity. When someone asks who I am, it's like, I am Lucas, I am a photographer, that is my identity. And then when someone's giving me feedback being like, you're not a very good photographer, you can be like, oh shit. It's like, well, fuck, who am I? So it's easy to take those things personally, but it's very good to take on that advice and not flat out take every piece of advice you're ever given and just like run into the ground. I definitely did that at the start. I would take people's advice very literally and act on it and act on it and act on it. And sometimes it would just take me into these weird places. Like I remember someone being like, you have to choose. You're either a video person or a photo person. You can't do both. No one will take you seriously if you do both. And I get what they meant probably at that point in my career where I was at, where I was kind of doing a bit of everything. I was a bit scattered. I was like kind of doing events and like commercials and music videos. And it was very wish-washy. It was so very like, I'll do anything, just get me in front of someone. So it can help to sort of niche down a little bit, but I'd say don't niche down too much, too soon. Definitely not. And yeah, I took that advice very seriously at one point. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing any screw photo. And I just did video for a little bit. It was really stressing me out. And then when I started doing the photo stuff again, it wasn't with any other intent than just having a good time. And now I do both, and people hire me for both. They like the fact that I can do both. It means, it can save them money and time and hassle, just having to deal with me rather than dealing with a team of 2 people. Yeah. Now, this one might be controversial because obviously I do social media, but when it comes to personal branding, I don't think social media is the end-all way to do things. We've done very well without it in the past. People have made perfectly good working relationships without social media. I don't think it is absolutely essential. I think it definitely has helped me get a lot of work, get a lot of exposure out there. There are a lot of positives to it, but I don't think there needs to be a pressure for anyone that has to do it. Especially, I come across some photographers who just have no social media presence, really. I'll add them on social media, like, where's all your work? It's like, I just have an agent and, a book somewhere. And it's like, oh, right, okay. You can sort of plug in with that way of doing things, having an agent, having your own in-person communication. There are even some influencers I know who it doesn't look like they have like a lot going on their social media profiles, but you might see like, they're doing this brand deal or that, and it's just like, how do they have this access? And it's like, they run quite big events that they don't, really like do a whole reel about, and just like, we're running this event, but they have a big community in the real world, and that's very important, having that real world community. I've been focusing on my social media for a while, and now I'm also trying to focus on just being out and about in the real world, because there is a lot of importance in that. That's also why I very much crave being in the US. I feel it's a lot easier to have those quick in-person, make those new connections in person. I have this conversation a lot with people who feel the difference there, of how fast-paced it is. And I guess you could say it feels, in terms of networking, is what I imagine it would have been like before phones. in London. People being a bit more, who are you? Let me get you. What are you doing this week? Let's do something. The whole online self-branding for me is it's the start point. It's just getting my face in front of someone to then build that in-person connection. If you can do it without the social media stuff, great, go do it. You know, you don't need social media. It's just a tool on your journey to making real in-person connections.